thinking about moving down south or over here to the southeast, and you keep hearing the same two names from all your friends, South Carolina and Georgia. Well, here's the wild part. Both of these states are actually crushing it in inbound moves. South Carolina sitting at number 3 and Georgia at number 5. This is for anybody, for people packing up and heading right here from all over the U.S. But here's the real question. Do you plant your flag in Columbia, South Carolina, or do you head across the river and pick Georgia? Well, in this video today, we're actually going to give a full-on showdown and break it all down for you. And if you stick around to the end, I'm actually going to tell you who I think should pick Columbia and who I think should pick Georgia. I'm Chad Norman, your Columbia, South Carolina realtor right here. I was born here, raised here, and I've been helping people from all over the country move to the Midlands every single week. If you're new to this channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, tap that notification bell, because every single week I'm dropping videos just like this on cost of living, neighborhood, school, lifestyle, comparisons like this video, everything you need to know before you make that move. And as always, if you're thinking about moving right here to South Carolina, especially the Columbia area where I'm at and specialize, give me a call, text, email. Better yet, my favorite part is when people book a Zoom call with me through my county address. It's right on, and everything's in the description below. Columbia, South Carolina versus Georgia. Let's start where everybody feels it first, right in your wallet. Number one, cost of living. Who's cheaper? Both South Carolina and Georgia are cheaper than the national average. Both have good stats when it comes to it. That's why people are leaving states like New York, New Jersey, California, and they're pointing their moving trucks right down here in the southeast. But on a statewide level, Georgia's actually about 4 to 5% more expensive than South Carolina. Now that doesn't sound like a lot until you stack that over housing, gas, food, and a 30-year mortgage, of course. Now let's zoom in and say Columbia versus Atlanta, like I said in the very beginning. Living in Columbia, South Carolina is roughly 20 to 30% cheaper than living in Atlanta, Georgia, on average. Now that's not a rounding error. That's the difference between breathing a little bit each month and wonder why your paycheck is gone on day 10. Groceries, utilities, healthcare, they're pretty similar between the two states. But where Georgia, especially Atlanta, really smacks you is restaurants, services, big city amenities. Some data actually puts Atlanta restaurants priced around 40 to 45% higher than Columbia. So almost double. And that's what you get when you get some of these Michelin 3-star restaurants that big cities like Atlanta have. Charleston's got a couple here in South Carolina. I think Greenville's got one. Columbia has none. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have great food, but if you like to eat out a lot, you're gonna feel that Georgia tab when you're eating out. So if you want your money to stretch a little bit further day by day, Columbia and South Carolina have the edge on this one. Now let's talk about the big one, housing. This is where people either fall in love with a place or they say, nope, and it's just not for me. Now, this is one of the most important decisions that you're ever gonna make in your life. And when people come here to Columbia, I see their jaws drop when they realize how much house they can get for the price. So there's a few things in this comparison that I wanna go over. But believe it or not, statewide, median home values in South Carolina and Georgia are pretty close. They're roughly high 360s to low 370s, depending on the data set. But that average hides a lot because let's face it, Columbia is not Charleston, where the average or median price is in the 600s, whereas Columbia, it's in like 275s. In the suburbs, you're talking more between 3 and 350, just depending which suburbs you're at. And Georgia just isn't Atlanta. But here's the important part. According to best places and other cost indexes, housing in Columbia is 43% cheaper than housing in Atlanta. Let me say that again. You can get often a similar house for almost half the price in Columbia compared to Atlanta. Now, again, that's not the suburbs of Georgia. I'm comparing that to Atlanta. I haven't seen them as low as what you can get them in Columbia, but you can get decent priced house in the suburbs also. There's other things that you're going to concede when talking about that big city Atlanta life, and those are coming up soon too. Compare that to hot Atlanta suburbs, which we do have hot here, but it's even hotter in Atlanta sometimes, believe it or not, where you can easily see median prices jumping much higher. Now, I wasn't expecting to put this in this section, but when I saw the figures, it surprised me, so I thought I would do it. Obviously, I buy and sell houses. That is what I do. I do not rent houses. I know property management companies that are incredible and do a great job, but I do not want to deal with renters. But renting in Columbia versus Georgia. Downtown one bedroom in Columbia is around $1,500. Downtown one bedroom in Georgia averages $1,350. It's lower in Georgia than it is in Columbia when it comes to rents. Step outside the city. Outside Columbia, it averages about $1,100 for a one bedroom. Georgia city centers overall around $1,150, a little bit closer. So if you want to buy, Columbia in the Midlands gives you a lot more house for the money. Now, if you want big city in-town life, Georgia, especially Atlanta, it's going to make you pay for that zip code. Remember that when you're looking at those prices of houses as well. Now, other things we're going to. All right, this one keeps jumping up in my lap each time, so I'm satisfying and let him sit in on this session on number 3, taxes. So let's talk about taxes, because that's where a lot of folks from the Northeast start to perk up when you're talking about them coming up from Jersey, New York, whereas they can be as much as 5 times more than what we have here, sometimes even more than that. Property taxes. South Carolina is a monster win here. South Carolina's average effective property tax is about 55%. Georgia's, it's about 0.81%. Typical annual bill in South Carolina, it runs you about $980. In Georgia, runs you about $2,027. So the average Georgia homeowner pays over $1,000 more per year in property tax than a similar homeowner in South Carolina. That's not pocket change. Short vacation might even be your whole HOA for the year. Not here in Columbia, but maybe in Georgia. Or it could even be a meal plan on your kids' tuition. Who knows? It's nothing to laugh at. Income tax. South Carolina has a progressive bracket. It's up to about 6.3% after the top recent cuts. Georgia is moving toward a flat tax of 5.49 now, but dropping to 4.99% in the coming years. Higher earners, if you're making more money and more income, you might like where Georgia's going on the income tax side. Now, sales tax in South Carolina is just 6%, but the local add-ons like your local cities, Columbia, they can add up to 1%. Most sales tax right here in Columbia is 7%. Now, Georgia, as a state, it's 4%, but the locals can add up to 5% on that. So some areas actually sit in the 7 to 8% range, depending on what part of Georgia that you're in. Retirees, a lot of them are coming too. South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. Neither state taxes Social Security. South Carolina gives retirement income deductions up to $3,000 under 65, up to $15,000 over 65, taxed on other income retirement as well. Now, Georgia lets people who are 65 plus exclude up to $65,000 per person of retirement income. But if you pair that with super low property taxes in South Carolina, and a lot of retirees love this math here. It's not something I do a whole lot of, but the bottom line is, if you want rock bottom property taxes, South Carolina wins. If you make a lot more money and have a lot more retirement income coming in, Georgia's income tax bracket is actually on that flat rate is a little more attractive. Both are widely better than most high tax northern states and even out west. Definitely. That's just a quick summary of the taxes. Next, jobs and economy. Let's start with unemployment. Both states are very strong in this. They're both sitting at that 3% range, which is often a lot better than the national average. Now, Georgia, the bigger economy, more Fortune 500 companies are there. Delta, Coca-Cola, Home Depot, UPS, A lot of film and TV production. A lot of people don't realize a lot of movies are filmed in Atlanta, Georgia. Tech, logistics, finance. If you're chasing corporate, big business careers, Georgia, and particularly Atlanta, is a very serious contender. Now, South Carolina, it's a smaller economy, but it is growing fast. The major pillars are manufacturing, such as Michelin and BMW are in the upstate, Boeing's in Charleston. Tourism, you got Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Hilton Head. A lot of people head that way. We learned in my last video, believe it or not, Myrtle Beach is the #1 place in the entire nation people are moving to. We have agriculture here, we have government and education. Now here in Columbia, we've got state government. Columbia is the capital, of course. The University of South Carolina is a big one. We just lost to Clemson today. I'm doing this on Saturday. This will not post till Tuesday, but there's always next year. Famous saying right here in Columbia, South Carolina for our Gamecocks. Fort Jackson is one of the most massive Army bases in the nation. We have a lot of trainees that come through here, and there's a lot of healthcare systems. And even the new Scout Motors that I've talked about a lot coming to Blythewood, they're bringing about 4,000 jobs to this region. That is nothing to sneeze about. They will be putting out over 200,000 cars a year, which is just insane. The University of South Carolina provides about 6,000 jobs, to put that into perspective. Income-wise, Georgia's median household income is roughly 9% higher than South Carolina's, and it's largely due to Atlanta's corporate engine. But when you factor in that lower cost of living right here in Columbia, that gap doesn't feel nearly as big in your actual lifestyle. And of course, you got a lot of people that make national money, but they work from home right here in a lower cost of living place in Columbia, and that money goes so much further, might even get you a place on the lake. When you factor in that lower cost of living and housing in Columbia, that gap doesn't feel nearly as big when you're talking about that lifestyle. If you're a corporate climber or a tech person, Georgia, especially Atlanta, it gives you more of those ladders that you can climb. Now, if you're into manufacturing, government, healthcare, education, military, or you want a solid opportunity plus affordable housing, right here in Columbia and South Carolina, they're hard to beat. All right, number 5 is the schools. We would not be doing our duty if we did not hit the schools. For all the families that are watching, a lot of people move places just based on their school systems alone. Now, on a statewide ranking, Georgia usually lands around 30th in the country. South Carolina, around 38th. Not great, but again, like I always tell you about the schools, you've got to make sure and do your research on the individual school districts and then tailor it down into the individual schools itself. So on paper, Georgia edges South Carolina on K-12 performance, graduation rates, test scores, etc. But averages don't tell you where your kid is going to school. Around Columbia, especially in the suburbs, Lexington, Irmo, Chapin, we've got some very strong school districts like Lexington Richland 5, Lexington District 1, and again, break it down to the schools too. Around Atlanta, you've got high-ranked districts in suburbs like Cobb, Gwinnett, Fulton, etc. You'll also see more variability in the Atlanta suburbs. Some fantastic schools, and you might even see some rougher ones too. College-wise, both states are great. Columbia has the University of South Carolina, big SEC school, huge for the city. Again, they're like the number 8 college town in the nation. South Carolina also has Clemson, like I mentioned before. They just beat us. Not as big, it's not the state school. Yeah, I had one son go to Carolina. I went to Carolina. My other son went to Clemson. Both are incredible schools, especially if you love the upstate, if you're into agriculture and things like that. There's no better place than Clemson. My youngest son, Caleb, in wildlife biology, so he could not go to a better state school than right here in South Carolina. Georgia has UGA, Georgia Tech, Emory, and others. Very strong lineup. What does this mean for you? If top-tier public schools are your number 1 priority, you're probably going to shop by district, not by state. Both have great pockets. Check them out and do some research. Get on a Zoom call with me. Give me a call, and I'll tell you the ones to call and check. And I can even lead you a little better in that as well. Niche.com is one of the better ones that you can actually go look up as far as school grades. But if you want good schools plus lower cost housing, I told you, push for Columbia, South Carolina. Columbia suburbs are going to look really attractive without the Atlanta money. Number 6, weather. Look, if you're coming down south for mild winters, both places are going to make you happy. It's just a fact. They're not far from each other. Average temperatures and stuff are very similar. Both Columbia and Georgia are humid subtropical. Hot, muggy summers, mild winters. A little snow every now and then, but nothing like the north. Dustings here and there for the most part. We get very few days, even in the winter, below freezing. It may get there at night. It's rarely ever there during the day. Now the summer, expect 90 plus days in both Columbia and most of Georgia. Columbia is literally branded famously hot, and they mean it. They're similar. People say Columbia is worse. I'd have to dive into it even further because for everything I know, they're very similar. Oh, the winters. Average highs are in the mid 50s to 60s. Again, like I said, in those winters, you might get a dusting of snow, but everybody's to the grocery store for bread and milk. And most of them, I will tell you, we're worse in drivers than Georgia. We're number 3 in the nation for the worst drivers. If you compound that, thank goodness we don't get many frozen ice, snow, or sleet, things like that, because if we had it all the time, it would probably double some of the wrecks and fatalities that we have here. Now rain, both states get around 45, 50 inches per year. Both can be hit with tropical storm remnants and heavy rain. You will get those. I talked about it in the last one too, and reasons not to move that you don't want to move to Columbia in my last video. But coast versus inland. Atlanta and Columbia are both inland, so they avoid direct hurricane hits, but they can get the remnants of that rain a lot of time. Coastal areas like Charleston, Savannah, Myrtle Beach, Brunswick, that's a different story. More hurricane exposure. Now, surprisingly enough, we're about to pass through hurricane season, and we have, knock on wood, we have not had hardly any hurricanes. I don't know if we've even had one hit the coast, really. They've all turned and gone out. It hasn't been as bad this year, but you're looking to be here for a number of years. Check that out. If you hate the heat and humidity, and neither place is going to be a dream, not Georgia or South Carolina, if you're thrilled to ditch snow shovels and heavy costs, then welcome home. Come right here and I will help you find your place. All right, number 7. Lifestyle and vibe. You've heard me say it in Columbia all the time. People come here for the cost of living. They stay here for that lifestyle. I love the lifestyle here. It is like a big, small city, but it is not a big city like Atlanta, like Charlotte that's not far away, different ones like that. You want to talk vibe? Let's see what decides it for a lot of people. What does Columbia, South Carolina have? Well, our metro is around 800,000 people. It's the state capital. It's a college town. It feels like a big, small town. You've got Soda City Market on Main. You've got the market in Lexington also. You've got USC Sports. You've got Riverwalks. You've got high school sports. You've got Lake Murray. You've got a growing restaurant and brewery scene. And you can still run into people you know at the store, but there's always something going on. Now, Georgia, especially Atlanta metro is about 6 million compared to that 800,000 here in Columbia. Now, you do have pro sports, which we do not have here. You've got the Falcons, you've got the Braves, you've got the Hawks, you've got Atlanta United. You also have a huge airport. If you go anywhere from Columbia, we do have the Columbia International Airport, but most of the time you're going to take Columbia to either Charlotte or Atlanta, and you're going to go out of there. Last time we went to Hawaii, we went from here to Atlanta, then from Atlanta to Hawaii. Atlanta has deep food scenes, arts, concerts, festivals, more of it. It's more diversity, more neighborhoods. It's more of everything because it is more people. You want that big city noise, constant events, pro sports. You're probably looking at Atlanta or maybe even Savannah or Athens for different flavors. Now you want a slower pace, easy commutes, friendly community, big city enough amenities without all the chaos. That's Columbia all day. Both of them have Southern hospitality, but in Columbia it feels a little more tight-knit, and in Georgia it depends heavily on the city that you land in. You may know some people if you're in a smaller city. If you're in Atlanta, you may never see the same person twice. All right, number 8, crime and safety. I've had a few people actually request I talk a little more on this, and I put it in the Columbia versus Greenville video that I did too. I'm putting it in on a lot of my versus videos like this. Quick word on the crime and safety, because you should always factor that in. You should. Apples to apples though, big cities have more crime. And Atlanta being much larger than Columbia, they have a higher violent crime rate per capita. Some stats actually put Atlanta at about 30% more violent crime than Columbia. When I say violent crime, I'm talking about injury to people, from murder to rape to different things like this. When it comes to property crime, burglary, stealing, things like that, they're fairly similar between the two. And it varies a bunch by the neighborhood you're looking at, by the city that you're looking at. The real story in this, and I'm not going to touch on a lot of this because it depends where you're going. You've got to look it up yourself and see. I mean, Columbia's got higher than the national average crime even here when it comes to violent crime and property crime. But 95% of people do not move to the Columbia area. They actually move to the suburbs of Columbia because, again, we have one of the quickest commutes of anybody out there. It's we average, I think, 17 minutes to downtown Columbia. Whereas I have clients coming in here right now in the big city, especially with Atlanta, and we're talking traffic next. They go to work one way, 45 minutes to an hour every day. That's just insane. I've never known that being here in Columbia my entire life. The real story is that a lot of people choose the suburbs like Lexington, Irmo, Chapin, Blythewood that are here. And in Georgia, the same's true. Safer suburbs versus rougher urban pockets. Now, the moral of this story, don't pick a state for crime. Pick an area for crime. You pick a neighborhood for crime. But if you're comparing Columbia to Atlanta specifically, Columbia generally feels calmer, smaller, and easier to manage safety-wise. Even downtown Columbia, like in the opening Finley Park, the new parks and stuff that are going in Columbia, they're putting new camera systems in, a higher police presence. They're doing a lot more here. Now, I don't know the situation in Atlanta. They're trying to get a lot of that and putting their money into that as well. Let's talk about number 9, traffic. This one's a no-brainer. This is the easiest comparison I've ever done when it comes to traffic. If you hate traffic, you will absolutely not miss Atlanta when you visit Columbia. Average commute times are shorter. Like I said, a lot of people drive here 15, 20 minutes to work, tops. You can cross the entire city in 20 to 30 minutes most days. Atlanta, that same 30-minute drive on paper can be an hour plus at rush hour. They do have more transit. They have more public transportation, as most big cities do, MARTA trains and buses, but the congestion is real. Now, Columbia, we don't really have a rail. We have a basic bus system. The car is king, but traffic's manageable. You're not losing 2 hours of your life every single day on I-285. If you're a frequent flyer, Atlanta's airport is a huge perk. Columbia has a good regional airport, but you'll sometimes drive to Charlotte or Atlanta for more options. And a lot of times you can get a cheaper when I'll drive to Charlotte, hour-and-a-half trip. What a lot of people are driving for a commute to work, I can drive to Charlotte Airport. Or if it's a longer trip, like I said, we go to Atlanta and from Atlanta to wherever we're going. We can do that for more options. You want easy daily driving, Columbia wins. You want a mega airport and you don't mind traffic, Georgia, specifically Atlanta, wins. But I mean, I hear people all the time talk about, even if they're heading to Florida, I would rather go around Atlanta than get caught, especially in rush hour traffic. Like I said, this one's a no-brainer. Columbia wins it hands down. Okay, so who wins? Columbia, South Carolina, or Georgia? Honestly, it really depends on you. Both are winners. Now, if you want lower cost of living, lower property taxes, shorter commutes, mid-sized city vibe, easy access to both beach and the mountains, we're centrally located, and a strong, friendly community, then Columbia and the Midlands of South Carolina, they're probably your next move. Yes, come on in for the end of the video. Now, if you want that big city energy, I don't know which one Hobbs wants here, but if you want that big city energy, the pro sports, huge corporate job market, endless restaurants and events, a more intense and fast-paced lifestyle, then Georgia, especially Atlanta, that might be your best bet. Here's the good news. Again, both of them are winning markets. Both are growing. Both give you a massive upgrade over a lot of high-cost, high-tax areas up north. If you're considering the move and you want to know where you'd fit, listen, give me a call, text me, book that Zoom call. The link's in the description. Shoot, all my information's in the description, no matter how you want to get hold of me. Or shoot me an email. Now, if you end up choosing Columbia or anywhere in the Midlands, Lexington, Irmo, Chapin, Blythewood, Elgin, Gilbert, Red Bank, there's so many other different little suburbs, then give me a call. I'd be honored to help you buy that home. If you end up choosing Georgia, I've got a network of agents I interview and vet personally, and I'll connect you with someone I trust with my own family if all possible, and give you options. Do me a favor, if it helped, hit the like button. Subscribe so you don't miss my next deep dive. Drop me a comment. Are you Team Columbia or are you Team Georgia? And tell me why. I'm Chad Dorman, your local Columbia, South Carolina realtor, and I help people turn the move into an upgrade in a lifestyle, not just a change of an address. I see you guys in the next one, and so will Merlin.